What's up, Tailgaters? You're in the booth with Tailgate Nate today, and it's time to dive on into some Week 10 college football predictions. Happy Halloween to everybody out there. Could it be a spooky weekend of college football as we have got a ton of upset potential to go on in Week 10? And it's already spooky for a lot of people because of what's happening on YouTube TV. But besides all that, we're excited for college football. Let's dive in to the Week 10 slate. My name is Nate Bope, otherwise known as Tailgate Nate. I'm a sports media graduate with a massive passion for everything going on in the wide, wonderful world of sports, but especially that world of college football. And if you want to hear everything I have to say during the season, as we get into November, more videos are going to be posted on the channel. So hit subscribe, ring the bell, so you're locked into everything I got going on. And if you want to support me in a different kind of way, you want to follow along in my journey to reach as high as I can in the professional world of sports media, then follow me on social media at TailgateNate29, Twitter, Instagram, wherever else you want to peruse the socials. With all that said and done and out of the way, we got 4 fantastic games that to me are going to be the highlight here of the Week 10 slate. We got 2 in the SEC, and that is what we are going to get kicked off with here to begin this game. Vanderbilt and Texas, or not this game, this video. Apologies. This first game here, Vanderbilt, Texas, one of the games that a lot of YouTube TV customers are unhappy that they may not get to watch tomorrow unless something gets figured out tonight between Disney and YouTube TV, between Disney and Google. We'll see if that happens. I'm a YouTube TV customer as well, but you know what? Spending all day at the sports bar doesn't sound too bad either. Anyway, I will be tuning into this one, and Texas, man, Arch Manning. That is the big question mark in this game, because with Arch in concussion protocol, his status up in the air for this contest. Look, I know he has not had the season that a lot of people put upon him with the lofty expectations, being a Heisman finalist, so on and so forth. He's a guy that really has come along and developed as the season has progressed forward. Is it still up to the standard that we all had at the beginning of the season? No, and I say we all because while I probably didn't have as high a standard as most, I still expected him to be a really darn good quarterback and him to be just a really, really good player out there on the football field. But it is just not manifested that way. And the Texas team overall, man, has just had a lot of really sloppy contests. I mean, you needed overtime to get past both Kentucky and Mississippi State, including the miraculous comeback last week in Starkville. I mean, my goodness, Texas, lucky they found a way there to hold on. Of course, the punt return touchdown helped out with that as well. Early on in the year, it was just not what Texas needed to do. But hey, they still find themselves in this thing, right? They're going up against the Vandy team that is red hot, man. Diego Pavia looks so good. This is the Vandy team that looks absolutely unbelievable. And you just take a look at some of Vandy's leading performers. Again, Diego Pavia, what a story he is just from top to bottom. Also leads this team in rushing. You got some nice young running backs, some pretty darn good weapons out there. Pavia's got a ton of different guys that he can throw out to. But here's my gut feeling about this game. I think Arch Manning is going to play. I think they're going to find a way to get Arch Manning on the field. If it is at all a possibility that Arch Manning plays, consider it a certainty. Now, if he goes through concussion protocol and they're like, look, man, this is still really bad, we just can't put him out on the football field, then it changes things, right? But I'm going with, I think Arch Manning is going to play, and I think this Texas defense is going to be a little bit too much. The defense, maybe again, much like Arch Manning in the offense, not been up to standard that people expected at the beginning of the year, but it has still played pretty darn well, and it is still really talented. What's something that Vandy has not had a lot of this year? Well, it's these ranked games on the road. LSU, they had at home. Missouri last week, they had at home. You look at what happened when they went on the road against a ranked team. Now, at the time, it was a ranked South Carolina, and they demolished them. But their biggest test on the road has been the Alabama Crimson Tide, right? And while Vanderbilt had their moments to win that game, man, a couple stops in the red zone just needed to find ways to generate some offense late, and they couldn't do it. I think Vanderbilt's going to hang around because I think this team is legit. I think they're really good, and I do think this would be a pretty marquee win for Texas. Now, what I will say is I think if Texas does get this win, you're going to see the crowd that plays it down. Oh, it's Vanderbilt. We knew this was going to happen eventually. Don't make that mistake, friends. Vanderbilt's a legit team. I just think Texas squeaks this one out. Maybe they find a way like they had to last week, but Texas is going to keep themselves alive for everything here. An SEC championship, a college football playoff appearance, so on and so forth. So 24-23, extremely tight-knit game. It's actually right on about what is currently that over-under. Again, guys, I don't usually look at that number when I write these scores down. So I think it's going to be a close back and forth game that the Longhorns find a way to win in DKR. Won't talk as much about this one, but this is a big moment for both of these teams, Oklahoma and Tennessee, to pick up a big-time marquee win here. Tennessee, you feel like you're kind of lacking that right now. Again, you lost to both Georgia. Even though you were winning for most of that game, you still lost in overtime to Georgia. You did lose in that game to Alabama a couple of weeks ago. So Tennessee is sort of lacking that big marquee win right now. Oklahoma, well, they do have the non-conference win over Michigan, but they really don't have that big marquee conference win. Auburn at the time was a ranked team, but now you see the direction that Auburn is headed. They lost to Texas. Yes, they beat South Carolina on the road, but then you turn around, you lose to Ole Miss at home. So this is a very big road test for Oklahoma. And in the previous couple of games, I mean, John Mateer just has not looked like his usual self, right? Especially running the football. That, I think, is a massive, massive key for a Tennessee defense that's been a lot better than I anticipated it to be. I mean, a Tennessee team overall that's a lot better than I anticipated it to be. I've talked in length about Joey Aguilar. I think he's playing some really good football for this Tennessee team. And sure, while you can say, I mean, look, this is a Tennessee team that they've been battle-tested. They have not seen a whole bunch of success in the winning ways when they do play these big-time opponents, but I think Tennessee's going to be able to get this one here. If John Mateer gets back to the form that we saw in the way early season, even that we saw last year at Washington State, I would watch out, man, because that's when Oklahoma becomes really, really dangerous. But I do think Tennessee is going to have enough of a defensive edge to be able to get that one done. And I think this Oklahoma defense is in for a little bit of a different challenge when you go up against Joey Aguilar and Tennessee. So I'll go with Rocky Top and the Vols at home at night. Night game in Lincoln in the Big Ten. Boy, is this one sure to be a classic and a massive game for both of these two teams. This is what you could consider a de facto Big Ten championship elimination game, college football playoff elimination game. It's going to be a playoff environment in Lincoln. I believe even the black uniforms are the Huskers this week. Okay, Lincoln. And they look awesome. They look awesome, by the way. I wish they would do the red numbering on the black jerseys, kind of like Ohio State does. Maybe that's my Buckeye showing through. Either way, I think Nebraska's going to find a way to pull this thing off here. You looked earlier in the season at that Michigan game as sort of the, okay, this is the one Nebraska's got to get. If this is not the big win, when do they get it? Well, they were not able to beat Michigan. You kind of were left scratching your head a little bit. Okay, when's the next opportunity going to come? I think a lot of people were looking at this game right here against USC, and you know what? It's going to turn out to be that. It is a massive test for Nebraska. It's also a massive test for USC, who walks into this game favored, but I don't think they're going to be ready for this environment in Lincoln. The one thing I will say about that game, though, if Dylan Raiola cannot improve his decision-making, he's just made some awful decisions that has led to some really easy interceptions by the opposing defenses. If he's going to do that against the USC team that has looked so much better than we're accustomed to seeing in the Lincoln Riley era on the defensive side of the ball, and Jade Maeva is playing great. I think you're going to see whatever team has more missed opportunities come out on the losing end. I'm going to call the upset here. I think USC's been playing the better football, but I think the environment goes a long way here, and I think Nebraska can feed off that. I'm expecting Dylan Raiola to have a bounce-back game, and I do think that Nebraska pulls off this win at home against USC. Matt Rule just signed the extension. The vibes are high in Lincoln, and I expect them to ride those vibes all the way through the win against the Trojans. Cincinnati and Utah, massive one out of the Big 12. And look, despite Cincinnati, ever since they lost to that Nebraska team, winning 7 straight games, and Utah at points looking shaky, they're not quite certain about the health of their quarterback, Devin Dampier, although I think he's probably going to end up playing this week. And even if he doesn't, you got a pretty solid enough performance last week out of Bird Ficklin, a true freshman, especially being able to run the ball for 151 yards and a touchdown. But Utah walks into this game 10.5-point favorites, which I just don't think Cincinnati is going to lose by that much. I do think Cincinnati drops this game. And here's why. Night game at Rice Eccles, it's a different environment. And while Brendan Sorsby and the Cincinnati team have, quite literally been firing on all cylinders, we did not expect them to blitz Iowa State. And ever since then, it's been pretty easy for them. A couple shaky moments in the game against UCF, but then they demolished Oklahoma State, because who hasn't in the country this year? They demolished Baylor, and this is a massive opportunity for the Bearcats and Scott Satterfield to keep this train moving forward and to keep on pushing. But I think Utah is going to get him here. I think especially if Dampier comes back, even though Ficklin played well, Dampier, I think it's just a little bit more athletic, a little bit more skilled. And while there are a ton of things that Dampier has not been too great with this year, I do think that Utah has the defense necessary to lock down Brendan Sorsby, Evan Pryor, this really good group of running backs. And I think Utah will walk out of Rice Eccles Stadium with that win. Guys, we need a big week this week. We've been terrible, quite frankly, in predictions over the past couple of weeks, right around 500. Need a big one. All four of these games, I'm counting on the home teams here to be able to pull out some pretty big wins. Although, again, the road team winning these games wouldn't surprise me. That's why they are the biggest games of the week, and it's just how this college football season has gone. But let's dive on in now to some more predictions, and might I add, when you look at all of these games here, there are a ton of tricky upset spots, and I'll tell you what they are when we get there. And might I just say, this first game right up here, Ohio State, Penn State, bam, right off the gate. I think a lot of people are going to look at that game and say, well, the Buckeyes have been playing pretty good football so far. Penn State is a dumpster fire. The Buckeyes should roll, right? Right? I think this is going to be a kitchen sink game for Penn State. Whatever they have, this is a kitchen game in general. Whether they make the charcuterie board, they pull everything out of the pantry. Penn State has got all the talent necessary to go toe-to-toe with the Buckeyes. Do I think it's going to result in a win? I do not. I think now where you have to watch in this game is the chess match between Jim Knowles and Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, because Jim Knowles, obviously the defensive coordinator at Ohio State last year, someone has got to break tendency, because this is an offensive staff that is going to know Jim Knowles' tendencies very well, and this is a Jim Knowles run defense that's going to know Ohio State's offensive tendencies very well. What I have said all along about this Buckeye team, though, that's scary, is they have not been running at full strength yet. They have not picked up the speed. I don't think they've eclipsed that speed limit yet. They have not gone over 55, 60 miles an hour on the highway. In fact, I don't even know if they've been on the highway yet. They seem to just be cruising through all the back roads and still demolishing everybody. Everyone's looking at their car going, whoa, I wish I had that. Man, Penn State's got a lot of good horses in this race. Nick Singleton has not been himself, so they've leaned on Katron Allen. I still think the weapons outside are serviceable enough. I just think that blackout game on the road, Penn State's going to keep this one close, man, and they're going to fight. I don't think they're going to get this one done. Buckeyes will find a way to extend this thing out in the second half of competition. But again, that's an interesting one to take note of. I think the line is around 18.5, anywhere from 18.5 to 20, something like that. I think Penn State's easily going to cover, but I think the Buckeyes get that win. The Buckeyes have done a good job at covering spreads this year, those of you betting folks. Miami and SMU. Boy, is this going to be a fascinating game. You got to watch out for SMU. They probably are out of the college football playoff race, probably are out of the ACC title contention race at this point, but they can play the role of spoiler here for a Miami team that still got everything in front of them. Yeah, you don't control your own destiny to get into the ACC championship. You need Virginia or Georgia Tech to lose. However, getting this win on the road, and you look at the rest of the Miami schedule, it's not really all that treacherous moving forward if they are able to get this one done. Now, SMU is going to have bad taste syndrome, right? They're coming off that loss against Wake Forest last week. Oh boy, they did not play their best football. Now you got a chance at home. This is a surefire trap game for Miami, who started slow against Stanford. Tell you what, slow start here, you could be in a lot of trouble. But I think not Cam Ward, he is obviously gone. I think Carson Beck is going to have himself a nice bounce back game. He did against Stanford, throwing for, again, only 7 incompletions, 189 yards and a touchdown. But I think you're going to see him be a lot more explosive, and Miami wins that game on the road against SMU. Let's show some love to the armed forces, shall we? Army and Air Force. Look, we all know what this game is going to be. It's going to be physical, it's going to be a lot of running, and it's going to be a very fast game. I'll go with the Black Knights on the road. Even though these two teams have struggled this year, I think the Black Knights have been a little bit more impressive. So I think they're going to get that road win against Air Force. We'll keep that nice and simple. And how about this? Let's go to the third Armed Forces team, the Navy Midshipmen. Boy, Blake Horvath is something to watch. But I'll tell you who else is something to watch. That's the quarterback for Navy, by the way. Drew Mestamaker for North Texas. You want to know what he did last week? If you weren't paying attention last week, by the way, true freshman quarterback, never played quarterback in high school, and last week threw for over 600 yards. This is a North Texas team that is legit. They are in the American Athletic Championship race. And might I add, if they can win out the rest of the way, this is going to be a big boosting win here against Navy. They can compete for a spot in the college football playoff. That's how serious I think this North Texas team can get. And I think Drew Mestamaker and company get this one done. I'm going with the Mean Green at home to knock off unbeaten Navy 42-34. I think a lot of points are going to be scored here. You got two dynamic, explosive quarterbacks. But I think that the Mean Green got a little bit more to confuse this Navy defense, so that's going to be a win for North Texas. Again, in my opinion, ending Navy's unbeaten season. You go right here, a very interesting one out of the Big 12. Both these teams, okay, they might be out of the conference championship race already. We just got news that Sam Leavitt is going to be out for the year for Arizona State. And, I mean, even if you were going to pick Arizona State in this game, I was not. I was always going to pick the Cyclones. I mean, it just more so swung it in the favor. We know Jeff Sims has had turnover trouble throughout his career. I'll go with Rocco Becht and the Cyclones there at home as... again, for Arizona State, it's been the health of Sam Leavitt that I think has led to them not meeting expectations so far this season. Georgia and Florida. I believe they call it the biggest cocktail party in the Deep South. Whatever it may be, neutral site in Jacksonville. Usually always a lot of fun, but I mean, I'm going to go with Georgia here. I think too physical defensively, and I think Gunnar Stockton can run all over this Florida defense. Quite literally, I do think that he can utilize his legs pretty darn well. In Florida, well, you never really know what you're going to get. So reach into the magical hat here, pull something out. Here, I'll even have a prop. Reach into the magical hat, pull something out, and that's, you know, you hope you pull out the good version of Florida if you are a Gator fan. But that's not always the way it's worked with this Florida team, and they're going up against a really talented Georgia side. I just think the physicality defensively way too much, and Georgia will get that win over Florida. How about this one, though? If you're Texas Tech, I talked about this in my top 25 video, or not top 25, my Power 30 video. If you're a Texas Tech fan, or even a college football fan, and you're saying, well, all eyes are on BYU next week, Kansas State, they should blow them out. Take a look at that score right there. Now, it obviously depends on how much you trust my opinion on that. I suggest that you trust it. Kansas State has gotten a lot better since the beginning of the season, and Avery Johnson is finally starting to play well. We're seeing that defense, especially up front, become a real problem, and I think that there's going to be a really good fight here. However, I think Texas Tech has got enough talent. Now you have Baron Morton coming back at quarterback. It's been a quarterback seesaw for Texas Tech this year. Obviously, Hammond is now going to be out, so you switch it on over back to Morton. We'll see how he plays, but I think Texas Tech is going to do enough to be able to get by Kansas State. But that's an upset-worthy game. Watch out. Wouldn't surprise me at all to see the folks in Manhattan storm the field and walk out of there with that win. Same thing here, man. Virginia and Cal. Virginia's only loss has been a non-conference game to NC State. And Cal has got a really talented freshman at quarterback. You can look up his name. I'm not going to try to pronounce it here for sake of time. Virginia's been playing really well so far this year, and much like when you take a look at Georgia Tech's schedule, you run through everything. It's a really favorable path to get into the ACC championship game, possibly even earn yourself an at-large bid to get into the college football playoff. Who knows if you can't win the ACC. I think Virginia's going to find a way to get this one done on the road, but Cal is frisky, man. Watch out for this Golden Bears team. They are not going to go down without a fight. Justin Wilcox has got his team playing at a fairly high level so far this season, even though you see them at 5-3. But what Virginia has done this year, I think, is starting to be something pretty special under Tony Elliott, and I think that they can continue that momentum in this game against Cal. Again, you just look at all the games this week, and there are a ton of them that I've already put up on screen that you're thinking, okay, brakes are going to be beaten off here, right? They're going to have to take their car into the shop afterwards, and you might be thinking that about Ole Miss and South Carolina. After that win against Oklahoma on the road last week, you could be looking and saying, all right, let's pull it back. Hey, I think we're going to be pretty good here. Not so fast. Shame on you for not remembering what happened with South Carolina last year. Devastating loss to a ranked team at home, and then the very next week they go out and beat the brakes off of somebody on the road. I'm not remembering off the top of my head who that was, but South Carolina's in a very similar situation right now. Tight one against the Alabama Crimson Tide. You can't pull that one out. Bam. You can come right here against Ole Miss, and I don't think if South Carolina gets the win, they beat the brakes off of Ole Miss. Trinidad Chambliss and company have been playing really good brand of football so far. But I do think that Lenora Sellers is going to be a problem for this Ole Miss defense in a game that, honestly, I'm expecting to be a little bit more low scoring than some people may think. I think there's going to be a lot of mistakes in this game, and South Carolina is going to force the issue here, which is going to lead to a lower point total. But I still think the Rebels are going to find a way to survive. And again, I'm not calling really any upset except for Nebraska over USC. That is the one that I am sort of calling there. As far as upsets go, maybe even some of you might consider North Texas beating Navy an upset, even though the Mean Green are the favorite in that one. But again, guys, we need a better week this week. Come on, we need a better week. Manifest it for me. However, it is college football. There are a ton of games that I've already mentioned, and even more that are on the schedule that you look at and say Georgia Tech on the road at NC State, along with some others that you could say, oh, watch out, this is shaky upset territory. So the chaos can run early in November. There's still a ton of college football left to play. 5 weeks left in the regular season, guys. That's all we got. Enjoy your college football Saturday, and I hope y'all are having a happy and spooky Halloween. Hey, remember to play hard but tailgate harder, and I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.